Hey,
Hello,
Mari.
Saul.
Hi, Mari. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Yourself?
Pretty good. Hanging in there.
So I was telling Dr. Murray in the pre-show chat, scan of the week. I'm thinking about all the practitioners out there that have something going, send us something in. I know it's what everybody does every week, in their one-on-one sessions, but I thought it'd be kind of cool as, hey, I had this scan and I had issues or I had problems with it, and we put it up and we noodle it out. And on Thursdays, we put the Grandmaster Poobah on it and see what he says after, we deal with it. I'm not going to do it now. I'm just giving everybody the heads up. This is all about the viewers and listeners giving us feedback on what they would like to see more of. Some people said that, so I'm dropping that in there. Joshua Moore, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing all right.
Yeah, so I guess we just kind of all have to agree or disagree or whatnot, because what we're starting to chat about then is grand rounds. And then whose scan, do we have permission to use it?
That's what I'm just throwing it out there because there's a lot of hoops we got to go through.
Yeah.
Joshua, I'm talking about doing like a scan of the week or something where somebody sends something in and we noodle on it. And
well, I have hundreds of cases that have education.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I have them all anonymized. They're all completely cleaned. So
okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just throwing it out there to get feedback from everybody. Somebody sent me that suggestion. I'm like, you know what? I'm down. So what's been going on?
In console groups, we just throw in a case and we tear it apart.
Exactly. And we say, oh, I've seen that pattern before, and boom. So what's been going on this week, Joshua? How is the Titanic machine? And please tell everybody what I'm talking about with the Titanic.
We haven't. He's talking about the hyperbaric oxygen therapy machine. We haven't done any marketing on it, but it's starting to catch. It helps that we're charging 70% less than everybody else, at least. So we're aggressive in our pricing, but we haven't done any marketing on it. It's starting to fill up just by word of mouth. I don't know how to market something like that. With neurofeedback, I would just volunteer more, but you can't really do that with HBOT for a couple of reasons. It fills up too quickly. There aren't enough slots. Volunteering doesn't get you as far. But there's a lot of people who have been, family members who've suffered with strokes, and they have their ear really close to the ground, and they're thinking about HBOT, but they can't afford it, and so they just, I would say, like pretty much everybody who's wandered in word of mouth has been stroke patients, and they've all reported benefits, which is really fun. That we're generally seeing great results from it and great feedback. Having a device like this in the clinic ends up being more general wellness because you have a condenser rather than an oxygen tank, which is the way you want to go. But you have technical things. It's not a medical device now because it's not got an oxygen tank. It's not a drug, but then it's also not medical. So, which is like, that's good and bad. It affects the way they use the language. It's like, okay, we're going to recommend it based on certain neuromarkers, but not based on certain disorders. Does that make sense?
Well, it does. It does.
Yes.
Yeah. So not to the average person, sometimes clients need, to quite understand that. Why are there like, why are you doing this technical thing? It's like, because I have to. Yeah. So I just have to, it's just the bureaucracy we live in. But it gets the job done one or the other. People are feeling better, and that's the goal. So
let's go to the other end of the country, Saul. What's been going on out there? Anything keeping you up at night that we can?
So much keeps me up at night. No, just normal crazy stuff. I have a couple of clients I'd like to send across the country to Joshua, and
there's got to be someone closer. Got to be.
I know there's got to be someone closer in this part of the world, but we'll see. That's things are just moving along.
Dr. Murray, give us an update. What you've been up to?
Oh gosh, what have I been up to?
What haven't you been up to?
What haven't I been up to? Well, I guess I'll start with humor. I've been, working myself to the bone and finally decide to take a nice vacation and come back sick as a dog. So universe is telling me not to go on vacation. So no, but otherwise, no, just working hard at the clinic. Collecting more and more data on the apps. I think people know that that's a primary objective, just to get the numbers up. All's going extremely well on that. And then next week off to BFE. I'm going to be presenting there.
You're going to Egypt?
Sorry?
You're going to Egypt?
No, Biofeedback Federation of Europe in Poland, going to Poland to present.
Oh, nice.
And something that, I don't know, I like many of us, I think I get kind of bored, so I kind of switch around what I do, but I'm going to be presenting on, the presentation is called Serenading the Muse. So it's working with elite performers, in particular composers. And one of the things probably everybody here knows about is I've got a real issue with US and Canada following, and Europe. We're cutting our music programs. We're cutting our art programs. But fundamentally, if you have really good, strong music background, your mathematics go through the roof. So I'm going to be talking about training alpha, pattern recognition, composing, mathematics. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Anthony, what's going on in the chat group? I mean, I hear you banging out.
Sorry, yeah.
Yes, there. I know. What's going on?
Well, I'm just marveling at. I posted just a little while ago, actually, that there's a study, and I'd already seen something, but it says 60% of Gen Z drink or do drugs to get through work. And there's other findings I think I heard that
that's the stare.
What's that? And that's the Gen Z stare. There you go. And I think I heard that 30 or 40% have admitted to using cannabis at work. Like it's 30% of them use it regularly.
Yeah.
So it's kind of taking off, and I just worry about it. And there was a wrinkle here this week too that there's a big study in New England Journal of Medicine, I think it's NGEM. Anyway, that teens are sleeping less than ever, and screens aren't to blame, because at least they found, and Dr. Mari, I know, is going to be very worried about this, but this was on NPR. They found that the kids that use screens less, the least, actually slept the less. They were more likely to sleep less than 5 hours. And they said they thought extracurriculars and stress might be to blame. And I know I knew kids like that.
I'm with you. All of the above. I mean, I'm the first one to say the first thing we always do is blame screens. But I mean, the other thing I do talk about is how childhood is a business now, and all of these extracurricular activities are absolutely insane. So you put a child in rule-bound school all day, then you drive them off to rule-bound soccer, and then you've got rule-bound Cumin and this, that, and the other. They come home absolutely exhausted, but wired. They can't turn off. In terms of the eating patterns, they have snacks in cars driving here and there. Families are not sitting down to dinner, so you don't have good communication skills with the other adolescents or kids because of the SX screen use. And then you don't have communication with your family because you're always going here and there and everywhere. And the kids are absolutely exhausted, and so are the parents. I tell parents, pick one activity, and go play in the park, Everybody needs some downtime.
Like, what's the right amount of time? I know you're going to say depends, but you have fairly new parents. They got one kid, and they're trying to not helicopter, but they, you got the devil on one side and the angel on the other, and what should they do?
I just mentioned I'm a huge fan of music education, but it doesn't have to be conservative piano, right? It can be just goofing around with a little bit of jazz piano, or just, starting a fun band with the neighborhood kids, or playing recorder. I mean, there's nothing wrong with recorder. No, now recorder is a lesser, horrible instrument, or harmonica, or, those type of things. The second language is fantastic. I mean, all of these things are really, really positive. The problem is people don't do things for fun anymore. Everybody is on a team. I think we should bring back clubs. And also dance for young females is another one. These dance schools and all these competitions, this, that, and the other. Please have your little girls and your little boys, dance. I mean, it's wonderful for coordination and fun and movement, but don't take it so seriously. If your little one really does show promise to be a prima ballerina, is mad about it, well, of course, then you're going to run with it. Just like if you feel one of your children has the chance of being a soccer star or, an elite athlete and other things, speed jumping, go for it. But I mean, majority of parents spend literally thousands upon thousands, and sometimes $10,000s of dollars a year for things that the kids aren't going to necessarily excel in, and they're not having as much fun as they should be. And so I say be long and hard.
You're reminding me of, I mentioned her before, but Elisa Liu, the Olympic figure skater, the gold medalist from America, she had this big comeback this year after taking time off. She retired, and it's rare that people come back, certainly to win gold. But the story, and it's been all over the media, is she quit originally because it was too much pressure. And specifically, she was a teen. One of her conditions of coming back was, look, you're not telling me what to do anymore. I'm going to pick my routines and my outfits and everything. Yeah. But the word on the street is her dad was very pressuring. It said that he spent probably $1 million on her training. And we all know the parents that can get very involved. You almost wonder if you can compete at that level without the push from the parents.
It doesn't happen naturally.
I get you. Yeah.
But I mean, how do you know when you really do have a superstar and when it's really worth it versus when you're destroying somebody's childhood? I mean, the legend of Venus and Serena. I mean,
they're not different. They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah. Very true. Yeah. But I mean, it's worth parents having some really good chit chats.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. There's nothing healthy about becoming a billionaire or winning a gold medal. Those things don't happen naturally. If you've had Olympic athletes in your office, their brains aren't normal, and you better not fix them if you want them to win gold.
Right.
You don't fix those people. You have to have a very complex process by how you train them.
Well, I mean, we joked about this before, in terms of, the addiction signature. Every single, and, I'm referencing Vancouver again, the downtown east side, we have a really troubled population with really, really sad addiction issues. And I did, some scanning. And they all have the addiction signature, surprise, surprise, but so does every single elite athlete has an extreme addiction signature. Most extremely successful professionals as well. It can be flipped into drive. It's either drive or destruction. I call it, and when I work with kids, I call it direction versus correction.
Well, in the best case scenario, it's usually both. And if you're a talk therapist and you spend time with them, it's definitely both. Even if they're a gold medalist, even if they're a billionaire, it's both.
It can be, yeah.
You can't actually run that fast and not destroy something in your life.
Yeah.
And so usually there's going to be damage, and if they're coming to you in the right headspace, you'll kind of do a biopsychosocial inventory. You'll do the brain map, and then you'll kind of have this heart to heart of like, you can't have it all. You got to pick something. Yeah. And to their credit, in my experience, when you frame it right, they say, let's fix this, and we'll do away with the career. When you frame it right, that's generally what they choose. They want to be balanced,
Yeah, this is the big it depends. I mean, we can throw this up to Jay tomorrow, but we've talked about before how there's just a circuit that it doesn't turn off. It just switches, not necessarily direction, but it switches addiction, and it's a matter of which what it is, if it's quote unquote healthy or not, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Is that the anterior cingulate you were talking about?
Yeah, the anterior cingulate and beta spindles, and they're very specific patterns that you see, and they can turn into auto-destruct if you're not well directed. I mean, come on, all we have to do is look at Tiger Woods, Michael Phelps, these are the individuals that were in parallel addictions. The elite sport, but then they needed more. But your average American football player. And heck, even European football. Well, it used to be. I don't know how much it is now. But the cocaine use, the drug use is through the roof. And for a lot of these, and I'm going to say in particular men, they can't just turn off the off switch. It's not necessarily that they're living the high life that they're attracted to cocaine. It's like they need something else when they're off the field. And this is where I would say really good sports psychologists, they know how to do their stuff. But it's tough. You can't, you're always playing up at this level, literally and figuratively. How do you curve down? Like, really, how do you curve down?
I would love to see, like, and I think people are investigating this, but brain-based athletic training modalities or types. For instance, there was a finding I saw this week, and I can't remember which skill it was. It's some athletic skill. And they said doing it more than 4 times a week served no purpose because the brain was not wiring in any better. Performance was not increasing. You know what I mean? So I think probably there might be some intensity we're applying that, and I'm sure it's individual variation, but maybe having your kid train however many hours a week, maybe they only need to train 75% of that to be, you know what I'm saying? Maybe
you're completely there. I mean, we talk about overtraining. We're a little bit more sophisticated in terms of overtraining of the muscles because they essentially rip and people get injuries, but we're absolute idiots, most of us, in terms of overtraining the brain. We think more is better, whether that's, math training, sports training.
And they even say breaks can help you learn. There's all sorts of data, even micro breaks, but yeah, that's an interesting topic.
Well, I think you can follow the follow-up studies from neurofeedback. Generally, you see an enhancement on follow-up, So, I've been reading more recently for a class I'm making on like Ruth Vanis's research, and she likes to do follow-up studies of 1 to 2 years. Generally, there's an enhancement on baseline. So you see like their baseline, then you see their second baseline after they've done the actual treatment, but then they follow up a year to 2 years later, and it's usually a 15% increase in gains. Of course, the placebo crashes out and goes back to bad, but the training group doesn't just maintain, it enhances.
Well, that's especially true with children. I like to say you put your hand on the developmental ball and you give it a really, really good push in the right direction or the correction. You take your hand off and the ball keeps on rolling. That's how we know we're doing good work. Yeah. Saul, you got to jump in.
Well, I was actually
yackers here.
That's okay. Now, I was just thinking that I think that's also true within session. I think there's been some studies showing that if you train and then stop the training but continue feedback, so you have these little micro breaks, the improvement is better than if you just train straight.
I really love the topic that came about. I want to be clear that I was speaking for athletic. Literally, like the study was like on how good kids were at free throws, and they had them practice the free. It wasn't a neurofeedback study, and they found the ones that practiced free throwing or whatever it was, only 4 times a week did no better if they did 5, 6, or 7. Yeah, and I think part of that has to do with the principle is like
music that way though. I feel like music the same way. Like if you're practicing, an instrument, you gotta literally sleep on it. You have to literally sleep on it.
Well, the brain
consolidation, integration
needs to consolidate.
Consolidation, yeah.
Nothing's more obvious how learning works than when I was studying music. Oh my gosh.
Oh wow, yeah. Because it's repetition or something, probably.
Yeah. Well, I just remember not being able to get something, like I was doing the drums or something, and I would not be able to get this riff, and I would go take a nap, and then afterwards it'd be like, boom, done. I got it. 100% squared away. And it was like, and it was so obvious that the nap is what did it,
Yeah.
I'm not an athlete, but my closest experience of what you're describing is, the speed bag, the punching bag in the gym that you do this. Well, they have those in gyms, and so I just played around with it, and some guy told me, this is what you're tied to get this rhythm. And I swear, I know it was very pronounced. I would end the session at some skill level. I would come back in the next day or the next time I was at the gym. I would begin the next session much better. And I am convinced that was neuromusculature, that was synaptic plasticity. That was not, speed bag is not about your strength. And you know what I'm saying? It wasn't a conscious skill building. It was completely nervous system. And so I've talked to a client of mine is a kinesiology PhD, and he says something that is what they believe as well happens with
Yeah.
The basketball player, he's not thinking about it anymore. It's wired into that it's unconscious now. It's automatic and it's happening while he sleeps. That's what the story taught me.
Well, even like when you just coordination based things, when you go to the military or you join a gym and you start doing some rigorous circuit workout, when you start doing push-ups for the first time, you're sort of like this dis-ease, and you don't have the symmetry down, and it's like you're not really coordinated. But then after just 2 weeks of that, you know that you can't have that lack of coordination feeling ever again. And it's like riding a bike. So if you don't do push-ups for 2 years, it's not going to matter. You're going to be able to jump down and do push-ups again. You might not be able to do as many, but that lack of coordination feeling, you're not going to be able to get that back. You'll never feel that again.
Gee, fellas, I wonder why we call it training.
Fair enough. But it's interesting. Some things are like riding a bike. They don't disappear. And that's fascinating. Neurofeedback's in that category, which I think is really, really cool. But there's just some things that once you get past the sensation, you'll never, ever be able to get it again.
Yeah, like the classic riding a bike, probably.
Yeah. Hey, Radar, welcome to the show. Waiting on the question for you. Since we don't have one, Pete's got to come up with one. So all these dads out there that think their kid is Michael Jordan, is it possible for them to get like a EEG recording at 5 years old to say, you know what, you got a hot singlet, then the odds are that you will either lock on to booze or basketball, one of the two, and it's your guidance that will get you there. Is that a...
That's so...
That's a bit
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I'd be super, super careful with that, because you can get into war with your kids over your wishes, right? So,
yeah.
And also, how do you direct something like that? It's like there's just no skills to coach. There's nothing you can do to offer the parent that will make them not sabotage it, because you don't know what they need to do to handle that kid differently. Realistically, do you want your kid to be Michael Jordan? I mean, I know Michael Jordan makes it look good, and Michael Jordan, from what I understand, his neurophysiology actually quite interesting. It's not going to be as simple as a hot singlet, from what I understand and what I've been told. There's some interesting things about him that are more meditation based, from throwing for 3 throws, which is very different than the typical fixation that we're talking about. Does anyone
but let's just assume that the dad will do the right thing. Is it possible? Is there an age, and is there an EEG recording that says, hey, you know what, it could be violin, it could be this.
You got to be careful though, because the anterior cingulate failure mode that creates that locked on, locked off sensation, it doesn't. It's not necessarily myelinated until the age of 18, so it might show up centrally. It doesn't have to show up frontally. It can show up centrally. So you're going to see sometimes a central tonic theta instead of a frontal tonic theta, and that can be the frontal aspect until they turn 18, because it slowly moves forward in some kids because of myelination. And not a lot of people know that.
And you can also just have a kid with extreme defiant disorder too. So last thing you want to do with a kid like that is push them in corners. So
Thank goodness a question. Does everyone do alpha theta the same way?
No, not really.
No.
Why not?
Lots of software out there, and they're definitely not the same. And there's more than one placement and more than one channels that you can work with. So a few montages out there.
All right. Jehan, welcome aboard. Does training more frequently? Go ahead, Anthony.
Well, it's just, Pete, real quick, a study came out that's been on all the major magazines recently about athletes and child prodigies. And what it said is the best child athletes rarely become the best performers as adults. The best athletes start a little bit later on. They don't pick their sport until high school. And they they were people that showed capacity across a broad range. They tried a lot of sports, is what they said. Like Michael Jordan, actually a good example. He wanted to be a baseball player, and he became one. And Tim Tebow, same thing. Tim Tebow's original goal, but he was better at football, so they had him do that. But that was his original dream. So anyway, kind of interesting. Bo Jackson.
Jehan, welcome. Does training more frequently just reduce the effect of each session, or does it slow down the whole process?
Not sure what that means.
Yeah.
Jehan, go back to ChatGPT. Nolan, welcome aboard. Hello, guys. I'm currently an MC student in my first year. I'm really interested in neurofeedback, but my program doesn't go over it. What are best ways, resources to get into it? Go to University of Texas at San Antonio. That's what you do.
Yeah.
What's an MC student?
Masters in counseling.
Master counseling.
Okay.
Go to bcia.org.
Yeah.
Look for a mentor. Yeah, look for a mentor.
Yeah.
That's what I recommend. I'm very passionate about finding mentors.
Look
Find
for
a
a
good
mentor, and
mentor.
also see if you can get a bursary or a scholarship to go to one of the conferences.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So APB, ISNR, or BFE. And you'll really get to meet some very talented people, go to all the presentations. And boy, oh boy, will that jumpstart your interest. And you could probably even connect with a mentor there. And there's money out there for the students. We're looking for brilliant minds. So
AAPB.org. Their student requests for scholarships are out now for the May conference. So
I know I was a master's in counseling student. It was in my first semester, and I had a pharmacology class, and they were going over pharmacology. And at one point, the professor said the holy grail of pharmacology would be figuring out how to deliver a regional effect in the brain rather than a global effect in the brain. And I raised my head and I said, do you know anything about neurofeedback? And he goes, I know about it, but I've never met anybody who practices it. I would kill to talk to somebody who practices it. And I was like, I actually practice it. And he was like, we're getting lunch. He was like, they wouldn't have come up if I hadn't brought it up. So these people do know about it, but they don't have access to it. They don't have the time to explore it. They don't have the time to go to the conferences. There's a general interest and curiosity, but not competency and not enough free time to explore it. And so sometimes students actually have more time than the professors. And I was one of those students.
yeah.
That's a really cool story. I like how he said regional effect, because that's one of the downsides of drugs. It's not the only one, but you're flooding the brain with serotonin, and there's serotonin receptors everywhere, and they don't all do the same thing. What's that, Josh?
The
Sorry.
area of effect of a drug is here.
and below.
Yeah, and everywhere. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's if you want the drug effect to be here, the effect back here is called a side effect.
Yeah.
It's just a joke. It's a little silly.
Adelita, welcome to the show. She says, nobody does anything the same way in this field.
They don't.
Oh, that's not true. That's not true.
I don't
Feels
know.
that
I
way
agree
sometimes,
with
but
her.
Don't shoot the messenger.
The criticism feels fair, but there are some standardization within some modalities, and I would say that I don't know. You can find groups that do things very, very, very similarly. There's more variability than is desired, though, and I sympathize with that.
Now that said, there is some confounding because one of the things we can talk about methods and systems and technologies and things like that. But the other is some of the difference is extremely positive, because I would say, those of us who have years of training and skill, the variation is because of our ability to really, really look at all the individual characteristics of the mappings. So be really, really cautious about confounding, PET protocols and pieces of equipment versus the ability to read the brain and personalize. So the one size fits all versus the skill and the talent. So, there are 4 quadrants, and they should not overlap when we make this comment.
Radar reframed his prompt and query. Is there a wrong way to do alpha theta?
Sure.
There's an infinite amount of ways to do something wrong. Yeah, there's an infinite amount of ways to do something wrong.
Any major pitfalls, though, on his behalf here?
I have my own personal thoughts. I don't know what other people would think, though. I'm sure Saul does too. You're sighing like some opinions.
Well, I have a feeling we're thinking perhaps about a similar person or the same person.
Yeah. Oh no! Oh yes! Oh no!
Inside baseball.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean placement, for example.
Yeah, placement. Sure.
I wouldn't want to do it forward.
Yeah, why would you do? Yeah, but we hear about that for some reason.
Yeah, doing it too much, I think, can be problematic.
Well, you also have to be careful about, the PET protocols, right?
Yeah.
I mean, alpha, theta, went leaps and bounds because it was one of the early protocols and had amazing success, right? But
Yep. I had an old college roommate who's a famous writer, and he wanted to come in and do Alpha Theta because he'd read that it could help him be more creative. And he wanted to write a book on poetry. He'd never written a book on poetry, and he wanted to write one. So he came in and he did Alpha Theta. I'm allowed to share this story. He lets me share it. But he had very classic, strong visualizations and strange experiences that people can have from Alpha Theta. It's not insanely common, but it's common enough that you have to talk about it from informed consent. And he had all the big experiences. And then he also wanted to try to lower the theta band to see what it would do. And it was like, we're going to do this, but it's wildly experimental and you got to keep in touch with me. And so we went from like 7 hertz to like 6 or something like that. And I think like a day and a half later, his wife called me and she's like, Josh, come pick him up. You broke him. I said, what's happening? He goes, he's been sitting in his room for 4 hours playing his didgeridoo. He won't. He's not helping with the kids. They had to go drive and pick him up. And he ended up writing a very popular book of psychedelic poetry. But we had to train him at a higher frequency. Let's just say 6 hertz was not going to get it.
Actually, Josh, that's a really good segue into some of the stuff that I'm going to be presenting, especially when you're working with elite artists. There's such a fine line that you train to be in what I call artistic fugue state.
Yes.
Where all the brilliance comes, but like when you break out of the fugue, you actually have this amazing product, whether it's a book of it, whether it's a chapter or a painting or whatnot. And then there are those, I'm going to rotate back to the comment before on Gen Z, where, you smoke a bunch of dope. You think, oh my God, I'm writing the best poetry on the planet. And then when you're not stoned anymore, you look and go, what? Right? So there's fugue and there's fugue, right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, geez. Yeah.
When does it help to track amplitudes, et cetera, over time? And when do you have to rely on patient reports?
Always track.
Rely on,
Always
sorry, go ahead. Yeah, always rely on patient reports, but it's when can you also include amplitudes?
Right.
Yeah, I say both. We were talking before about placebo, right? Placebo is not a dirty word. And what I love about what we do is we can track the EEG data and we track the subjective perspective or subjective experience. And sometimes the EEG moves before the subjective. Sometimes the subjective moves before the EEG. And every once in a while, bam, they're perfectly matched. So track both. Always, always, always.
And Adelita, she brings up Alpha Theta can bring up some trauma at times. And the video editor wants to make a quick comment. I know everybody's cringing, but is it having done a clinic for a short period of time, because I'm a podcast person, not a clinic person. If you had ketamine if you're in an office floor and you have ketamine or you have Alpha Theta training, you would have people, you would hear the moaning, the screaming, and I'm just people, you would hear these sounds, unless you got soundproofing, that doesn't help somebody trying to get, a brain recording. But does Alpha Theta and ketamine, is that the same thing where, you could bring up the trauma like they're talking about here, and that's why you need somebody licensed there to deal with the fallout of somebody to get them back online?
Yeah, who wants to take this one? I'm real conservative. I wouldn't even put them in the same classification. Now, both therapies, you're wanting to access trauma. I do that through the EEG. I don't touch some of the other therapies. So that's just my conservative perspective. But if somebody else wants to run with that, please do.
Well, psychedelic psychoassisted therapy is inherently messier and less controlled and broader. It has arguably more abreactions to unstable phenotypes. So, you're playing with fire a little bit more. It's not bad. Maybe 15% of the population can have negative abreactions to it. And people might think, oh, that's a trauma response, push harder. No, that is not how ketamine works. You're actually getting an abreaction because of instabilities, and those are not helpful nor good for your client. And so it's easy just to rule those out in a QEG and be like, that's not for you. Don't do that. when you have a stable phenotype, yeah, you can do it. I don't like mixing them. I think that neurofeedback, when it's going to be applied together, there's sort of a window where neurofeedback is more useful after something like ketamine or nootropics, because the variability of the EEG is increased following essentially like becoming sober. So you're not going to essentially get high and then do neurofeedback. That's not going to benefit you. Neurofeedback is going to work in parallel with how well you would learn in a classroom. And so if you're not very present, that's not the time to train. Okay. But following some stabilization period, that might be the time to train. But I'm not a big advocate of mixing them, but sometimes they are mixed. And sometimes that's because people are already using these things under medical supervision. And then, there is some guidance in which, if they're going to be on board, let's at least order it properly. Let's not do it right before neurofeedback. Let's do it the day before or 2 days before. Does that make sense? And so it's not you really managing it or you providing the psychedelic psych-assisted therapy, but more that you're being mindful of what the variables are.
I think
I was going to say, even on alpha theta, though, I've seen people like stuff get brought up and then you have that same output. Is it the same, or am I just imagining things?
No, I work mostly with like cult survivors and traffic victims. That's like my specialty.
Yeah.
And many of them have pretty dramatic stories, and whether they know a lot of their trauma or not, they do recover a lot of memories, and that's going to happen in alpha theta. What's different between alpha theta and like EMDR talk therapy is that when they recover lots of traumatic memories, they're not heavily distressed by the recall. It's not re-traumatizing for those to come back, especially if you help front load them properly. So the front loading helps a lot. If you don't do any kind of informed consent and containment ahead of time, they could technically be re-traumatized just by their own apprehension of the process. But if you do a good informed consent and a good containment protocol, generally they'll actually do a lot of the recall without being re-traumatized by it. And I don't know of anything else that can do that. Maybe you can see that in some of the psychedelic assisted psychotherapies, but as I said, they're a little bit more spicy. And I haven't seen them be entirely abreaction free in the same way. So I would say people do report re-traumatizing experiences for those, and I have way more experience with alpha theta, and generally very, 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 very few re-traumatizing experiences from that after 15 years. So.
Yeah.
Hold on, Anthony, I cut you off. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think Jay has said on this podcast that if you have abreactions from, say, having beta spindles when you do a psychedelic, that those can be aggravate like ischemia or something, I think he said, and that can be long lasting. I personally have met individuals that have had long lasting damage from psychedelics.
Yep.
And then the other thing I'd say for Josh is maybe, anybody can have input, but I think Kropotov says that there's no theta generator in the rear of the head. The only healthy theta, according to his research, is FMT. And then the other thing I know Jay says, theta is really supposed to be seen as an intermittent, he calls it phasic burst. And so he says that it's hard to know if you're training phasic or tonic theta. And so I guess anytime I hear alpha theta, I wonder about that. And I wonder if it's maybe it has good outcomes, but maybe it might have some not as good ones too. And maybe there's a better
you're much more technically accurate than the average person who talks about neurofeedback. And so when we're talking about 7 hertz content, are we talking about theta, or are we actually talking about slow alpha?
Slow alpha. Should you be training the slow part of alpha though? Then is making.
What is slow alpha? What is slow alpha?
I thought it was. I don't know. You tell me. Sorry.
When you're really, really, really young, lots of alpha content is at 7 hertz.
Oh, so I think Jay would say that older memories are encoded lower.
Yes.
That's the holonomic theory of the brain that he talks about with the Carl Pribram all the time. And that's why if somebody has early life trauma, you'll see delta and theta at T6 or something. This is what Jay says. I haven't encountered that somebody yet. But I'm just wondering, would the quicker way be to address, say, the delta theta at T6 and maybe the least abreactions, et cetera, although I know that actually is known for side effects.
I know that there are some protocols where people will train compensatory beta over T6. I think I could be wrong. I think that's a Seaburn protocol. It was never one I dove into.
Additionally, we're trying to get rid of slow alpha though. So I don't know that we're suppressing it, but it's not a treatment goal.
And there, you know,
slow alpha for you, buddy.
I get the regional approach, but I don't know why that's necessary. When I train down like Ruth Lanius's protocol, you're just training alpha down at PZ. That works pretty quick. Like, I don't see any reason to go over at T6. Like, why would I? It works another approach by itself.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in and support Josh on this. That sometimes we get very, very complex and going into specific areas, whether Broadman or whatnot. When you have a really good traditional protocol that works, and you don't get a lot of the ab reactions, you know exactly what you're working through and talking through. Like, it ain't broke, don't try and fix it.
Yep.
There you go.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Dr. Rosenthal. So I'll ping that, or I'll tee him up by saying, Dr. Rosenthal, and then answer whatever else you were going to say, Saul. You mentioned temporal lobe epilepsy, and I've known people with temporal lobe epilepsy, and I've noticed they didn't have strong beliefs about philosophy or religion, different sort of sexual beliefs, and love to write a lot.
Should I give the context? I suppose I should. So I'd mentioned temporal lobe epilepsy in the context of hypergraphia, which is a compulsive need to write. And so just the little commercial is I have a couple of episodes of my other podcast, Healthy Brain, Happy Body, about the dark side of creativity. And I had talked with a neurologist, Alice Flaherty, who's up in my neck of the woods, and had written a book called The Midnight Disease, about her experience with hypergraphia. She had a manic break and ended up with hypergraphia. So she became interested in it at the same time as a neurologist, and kind of investigated that. But temporal lobe epilepsy and bipolar disorder it's a symptom of those. And
did you recall the comment last time, Dr. Rosenthal? I'm wondering, since you podcasted, maybe that's why we got a question last time about, can you comment on the types of things that manic or bipolar people write? And it wasn't radar.
Well, most of it's bad.
Okay.
Right. Like you were saying, like Mara was saying, when you smoke a lot of dope, you write all this great stuff, and then you look at it the next day and it's terrible. So it's a quantity often rather than a quality. I think that was different with this particular person because she was already a writer.
Yeah.
Or if you look at temporal lobe epilepsy, Dostoevsky had TLE. And so
that makes sense.
but probably for every one we know, there's 20 that we never know about because they're so bad.
They think Hemingway was bipolar as well, maybe schizophrenic or something.
He was something.
Yeah.
You ready for bad sense of humor? I'd much rather read the writings of a depressive than of a manic. You can at least follow them.
You can follow it.
You can follow it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Actually, there was an interesting.
Bless them as well. When you're working with clients, and sometimes people will write these diatribes overnight. And just kind of send them in. It's like, okay, we know where you are. Come on in. Yeah.
One of the interesting things that this neurologist, Alice Flaherty, told me was in a study of people with TLE, the neurologists just sort of wrote to their patients and said, do you think you have hypergraphia? And the ones without hypergraphia would write 100 words or something, and the others wrote thousands of words. So there's this. I think I may not quite have the details quite right, but it was this huge disparity, and that was a distinguishing feature. So
I'll be honest, anytime I see very long social media posts, I think of hypomania and very long social media comments.
Gosh, that's such useful information.
The semantic structure, though, varies incredibly. I mean, a person who is very, verbose and writes diatribes, that's very different than the disorganized nature of the thinking and the writing.
Right.
They don't even bother with the spell corrector or whatnot. It's just it's you know where the person's brain is when they're in this state, and it's a very uncomfortable state to be in.
Oh yeah.
But don't trigger that.
A friend was listening to. She listens to conspiracy podcasts. It's just a guilty pleasure for her, and she said, "Look at these questions," and it was a live Q&A, and every question was an acronym. It was like, talk about the BM and the HA and the FO, and the person literally had to like reason out what they were talking about live on the podcast. Anyway, I say that because manic people are more into conspiracy theories, so that's what we were kind of laughing about. Is these were unintelligible internet comments, basically.
Yeah.
Did we address Jay Hahn's question about alpha theta and when to be worried about upreactions?
When should you?
Well enough.
Go ahead, Joshua, read it.
I don't know. Well, I was just wondering if we had or hadn't. I would only, if the person was emotionally dysregulated, I would try to bring containment by explaining that weird and odd sensations are normal, and that odd visualizations are normal, and that lots of strong dreams are normal. And generally, the vast majority of them, when you talk about what's normal and you validate their experiences, that most of the bad symptoms are apprehensive oriented rather than sort of a reaction to the content. And so normalizing it makes them go away like 95% of the time.
Yeah,
but if you had somebody, go ahead.
I was just saying, you have to let people know that they're going to be doing some deep processing.
Yeah.
And that's part of the process. And what they're going through is either completely in the past, the door is shut, or it's not real. So to just help ground them in terms of these thoughts or these visions, they're not part of your current reality. You are safe. Very, very important and very simple message.
There is one exception. I think it's some of Lanius's earlier work in 1997, I think it was, when she went to, I think she went to Afghanistan and actually did alpha theta on people who were still deployed on military bases. FOBs.
Oh, that's different because they still were in danger. So that
did not go well. Okay, so there, if you're not safe, alpha theta will create strong ab reactions. Your body will produce energy to get you out of that environment, which you don't yet have a right orientation to. So, like if you find out that your client is still living with their abuser and you're doing alpha theta, they're not going to have a good time.
Wait, no, we double down on that one. Absolutely. The statement has to be true. If it's not true, then you are damaging a person. The last thing you want to do is do all kinds of work on how safe a person is living in a lion's cage. No.
Good luck with that. It's called gaslighting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that people doing alpha theta have visualizations. And to be honest with you, it makes me think of, psychedelics give you an acute hallucination visualization. But the thing about medicines or drugs is that they tend to have an opposite effect long-term than short-term. And I think there's a suggestion out there. What psychedelics do is spike your frontal theta, among other things. Okay. And that's what the hallucinations are attributable to. But long-term, the heroic doses, I think there's a suggestion they reduce your frontal theta, kind of your pathological theta. With neurofeedback, though, we're creating, we're upregulating. We're not downregulating like drugs do. We're potentiating, and our effects tend to last longer. And so that's just making me, I'm just being frank, that it makes me extra worried about alpha theta. We might be installing something, so to speak, that doesn't like to go away as easily as a drug reacts.
I'm not on the same page. I'll just leave it that way. But I want to kind of sound like a middle-aged fart or an old fart. I don't know how old or young I am in the general population anymore. But one of the things that concerns me is, we do know that certain groups of psychedelics, you can have flashbacks, not just months later, but years later. Is anybody controlling for this? This is one of the things that greatly concerns me.
I have not heard that. That is, to be frank with you, I hear all these good things about psychedelics, but the individuals I've known that frequently use psychedelics, I don't know that I would call them healthy. They're pleasant, and this is a stereotype. I apologize but they tend to be a little bit more, you'd call them spacey individuals. And it makes me wonder. I don't know that maybe that's a way better way to be. I don't know. But that's what I'm thinking of when you say hallucinations years later.
You're not finding it envious is what you mean.
Yeah, it's like, it sounds maybe pleasant, but to be a space cadet, but
it's
not my goal.
Yeah.
Hey, Saul, Hey, Saul, is hypergraphia also related to schizophrenia?
So I would say no, because the
Oh.
hypergraphia is compulsive, and I think with schizophrenia writing, it's not compulsive in the same way. So schizophrenic writing may be, creative drive. It's just disorganized in the same
Yes.
way that, but I think what drives it is different.
There is literature on the differences between regular writing and schizophrenics who write, but it's not hypergraphia. It's something else about organizational and structure.
There's literally a different disorder I'm reading that hypergraphia can be a differentiator of the diagnosis between schizophrenia and bipolar, because schizophrenics have a different writing, at least what I'm reading, a different writing disorder called graphoria. And it has to do with incoherent rambling or frequent digressions. Anyway, maybe it's subtly different, but they're suggesting it might be a different thing entirely.
Do you think there's room for sort of a spectrum like with bipolar affective disorders?
That would make sense.
Yeah. I see a lot of that in my office where it's bipolar affective. So it's like, oh, when they're really depressed, they're hallucinating, but not normally. But they're bipolar. They just happen to hallucinate when they're doing really poorly. Yeah. And they seem to be they're vulnerable. I wouldn't say they are, in their own ways vulnerable to hypergraphia. So they're more the bipolar type.
So the graphoria is more often incoherent and rambling, whereas hypergraphia is the intense urge or need to write or draw.
Yeah,
but
I would say they seem very coherent when they write.
What'd you say?
They seem very coherent when they write.
They can be.
They're not inarticulate.
Interesting.
They're not inarticulate. No.
Radar said someone sent him a 3,000-page document on a conspiracy theory, and he thought, yeah, this may be schizophrenic. Maybe it depends how coherent it was.
Yeah. How disorganized. Yeah.
Well, regardless, that's a long book.
It's a long book.
On the
That's
bipolar
War and Peace.
War and Peace. Oh, is that why? Yeah, that's that. So Tolstoy wrote that. Saul brought up Tolstoy. Okay, or
Dostoevsky. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and I think he's probably coherent because he's mentioned a lot in philosophy and things. But real quick on the bipolar, there was an interesting study that came up, and it kind of referenced Kanye's bipolar and other people's bipolar, and the authors were interested. Does bipolar really increase creativity? And what they found out is, it was a genetic study. And what they found out is bipolar was not, maybe slightly increased it, but what really increased it was having a bipolar sibling. So the person who didn't, and they said it's like it gives you enough of the genes but still protects you from the side effects or the downsides. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, I think those of us who do QEEGs, like we see this all the time. We all do. Like you have one patient that's doing really, really, really poor, and then maybe a sibling or a parent has the same neuromarkers but does really well, and they don't meet criteria on the DSM for the same disorder. That's like, so like these things run in families but don't always express, but they're still there doing something.
Liabilities, liabilities.
Wow.
How do you explain that one?
Yeah.
I mean, they're genetic.
Genetics.
Yeah. And we actually know which genes. We literally know which genes for some phenotypes.
But if it's the same phenotype, and the phenotypes, I think Jay has said are linked to genes, so presumably they would have similar genes, maybe not the same, but maybe it's slightly different variant, and that makes all the difference. I don't know.
Well, for example, your background alpha is passed down from parent to child between 72 to 92% of the time, depending on the gene 4 variant. Wow. Well, gene 4 variant for alcoholics, and there's other genes for everybody else. But across the board, it's about 72 to 92% of the time you'll get it from your parent, slightly more likely to get it from your mother. It's pretty wild stuff. That's a heavy inheritance. And so no wonder the alcoholic gene is so inheritable, because it's in the alpha band.
Right.
Dr. Paul, did you want to respond on that?
Well, because like that's an example. There's that 8 to 26%, or that's not genetic. So that's what changes.
Okay, that's true.
The expression of the phenotype. The phenotype is the function of gene times environment.
Yeah.
The expression of the phenotype, and so it's the environment which is going to be important. But we can't measure environment well, so we tend to throw it into the error variance.
Yeah.
Well, this is where I just want to loop back why we have to be so careful working with kids.
Oh, yeah.
And as Joss was saying, when you're working with one child very frequently, that has some difficulties, notable difficulties. They'll say, well, hey, we want to check out the other child. And it's like, okay, do you super flag, oh, well, your second child has this too, warning, warning.
No.
Or yeah,
the opposite.
you know,
I had a
there's
kid.
something there, and if it expresses itself, come back in a few years. You have to be really, really cautious.
I did a consult with a family, and there was something in the kid's head, and it was a little bit odd. And I did a consult. I said, "Oh, maybe you should get an MRI." The consult said, and I was like, "Oh, that made me feel uncomfortable." We mapped the other kids, and they all had the exact same thing. And I was like, "I don't know if you need an MRI if everybody in the family has it." It seems more like a family trait. It was like, whatever. This is just something everybody in the family has. And it was a fairly unique thing, but everybody had it.
Well,
Yeah.
Whatever. It's fine.
Well, we have the
If
three.
it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's a big one for a lot of things. Not all things, but for a lot of things.
Yeah, that's fair.
We have the three corners of North America representing here. Let's start with the Northeast. And Dr. Saul, do you want to talk about your podcast one more time? The URL?
Sure. Yeah, it's Healthy Brain, Happy Body. It's the Northeast Region Biofeedback Society, NRBS's podcast. Doing a series on creativity right now, and just in the middle of a discussion with this neurologist. The first part went out yesterday. The next part hopefully will come out next week. So let's give it a listen.
Nice. Let's go to the Northwest, and we'll start with the Northwest.
Okay.
Dr. Marie Swingle, welcome back to the country, or continent, sorry.
Yeah.
I've had trouble sleeping. Any thoughts on what I can do?
Yes, there's this wonderful app called Sleep, produced by yours truly. And you can get that through swinglesonic.com. It helps train you into stage 1 sleep, helps with overt insomnia as well as night waking.
That's
and
great.
if we what's the URL on that again? Is that
Swinglesonic.com.
Okay. And going to the south from the Northwest, Joshua Moore, hold on my
Near Portland, Oregon. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So we just finished producing the frontal lobe asymmetries phenotype class. We've got a couple of modules: frontal lobe disturbances, low voltage fast, and orientation module. So 4 modules that are ready to go. We're going to try and speed things up. We've been seeing that for a while because it's a slow process. We've been doing all the hard ones, but it's out. You can go and subscribe to it. If you're an early member, you'll get better discounts through your email from that point on. So there's kind of a reward for getting on board earlier if it's something you think you might want to do. But yeah, it's ready to go. And we're actually starting to partner with educational distributors who are reaching out to see who wants to host it and get, some partnership arrangement between us. And there's a good response so far. So it looks like it's going to launch. And not only that, but there's been some requests for different classes from different educational providers. So I'm getting homework. So we're moving into education.
Great.
And where do we send people, Joshua?
Just qeegcourses.com. That's where you can go to get the classes.
Nice. Okay. And then Anthony, I know you don't want any more traffic, but do you want to talk about any of your chat rooms?
No,
you're too busy.
No, just if you like hearing cool findings, I try to post in Brainmaster. I saw another one just the other day that there's some evidence. It was like a GlaxoSmithKline study that antidepressants actually increase depression over time. And so
another one,
I think that's really interesting. And so anyway, if you like stuff like that, that's the kind of stuff I'll be posting. And I got to remember to post that one. So thank you.
Well, everybody, thank you for showing up. I mean, the loyals, Radar, going down the list. I saw Jahan, and then we got Edalita. Thank you for showing up today. There's Jahan again. Who else did we have on here? Nolan, the student. Hey, man, hang in there, man. Go get that money. We get together every 6 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. on the East Coast. We get together, we nerd out, have a couple drinks, couple pizzas, and if we get indigestion, we have Jay Gunkelman to help us out on Thursday, where we get together and we dive deeper in whatever we didn't digest properly on this show. Thank you, everybody, for showing up, closing out. And then a little reminder, what we're going to try to do in the future going forward. Generally, it starts slow in the Q&A till we get the questions. So in that dead time, maybe we can spend it looking at a scan and just saying, hey, this is blank. I had this. Whoever's got, Joshua, you got a gazillion of them. If you want to bring one next.
If you give me a request a few days early, I'll make sure it's ready to go. I just need to go through the phenotype list and pick one that's been.
You got one 7 days early. Here you go. Yeah. Next week.
Okay. Do you have any specific requests for any type? Do you want to email me, or you just want me to surprise you?
Let's do it right now. Who wants to? Whoever's here want to put in there. ADHD. We know that one's a hot topic, but anything else?
That's everything's ADHD. What isn't ADHD?
All right, everybody. Thank you. On the hour, we're out of here. Great job, all.